Hello, and today this is going to be another AI for Apologetics. And I'm David, and today we're going to do an episode that's maybe a little more structured. We're going to look at how you can use AI to help with your learning, to help rephrase things, and then also to practice some of your apologetics. So let me get our AI up here. And like last time, I'm in this temporary chat window. It's got no history. It doesn't know anything about me or what I'm looking for or whatever. But like I said last time, AI can be kind of like a research assistant, a conversation partner, even. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at it kind of as a conversation partner. It can take on a lot of different roles. And it can explain difficult concepts for us. So we're going to start off with just the Kalam cosmological argument. Maybe you're new to apologetics. Maybe your strength has been in a different part of apologetics, and you just want to learn this one. So explain the Kalam cosmological argument, um, and it'll go through. And of course, um, William and Craig is the modern proponent of this. He's really done a ton of work um, to refine this argument. So that's what it's telling us, and let's explain it. You see, it gives the three big premises, and then has a little bit of explanation. Um, and philosophically, an actual, infinite, regressive past events leads to contradictions and paradoxes. Right? That's plain and simple. Um, but what if it's not plain and simple? Because I was being sarcastic. It's really not. Well, watch this. I'm just going to say, I don't understand. Can you dumb it down for me? AI doesn't mock you for that or get offended or whatever. You can just say, hey, let's do that. And so here we go. It's rephrasing it in a much simpler way. And now maybe you understand this, the philosophical argument for it, but the people you're talking to may not. So if you have AI rephrase it in this way, you can start to understand kind of different ways to communicate it instead of just memorizing the the three statements of the Clown cosmological argument. You can see other ways to phrase it, and it even gives examples down here. If you see a cake, there was a baker. If you see the universe, there must be a baker of the universe. But what if I'm still not getting it? Explain it to me like I'm in second grade. Everything that starts has a reason why it starts. Puppy has parents. A toy has a maker. Things just don't poof into being. The universe started a long time ago. There was nothing. And then the universe began. So something had to start the universe. It needs a starter. And it has to be outside of time, outside of space, super powerful, and able to choose to make everything. That sounds a lot like God. So now we've gone from the formal, like if you went to Viola and took a class from William Lane Craig, that's probably how he would have laid that out at the beginning. And now we've got it to where we could explain it to a second grader in theory. Balloon doesn't blow itself up. Someone has to breathe into it. Um, well, look, it even made a suggestion. Would you like me to give a fun little story with characters so you can see it in action? Sorry, I'm going off script here, but I do that when I'm messing with AI. The story of the big birthday party. Once upon a time, there was nothing, no people, no stars, no space, not even time itself, just nothing. Then one day, a party began. Music started, balloons popped, cake appeared, and friends showed up. If you walked in the party, you wouldn't say this just appeared out of nowhere. You'd ask who started the music, who blew up the balloons, who baked the cake. Because parties don't start themselves, someone has to throw them. So this is a relatable example that parallels the Coulomb cosmological argument. So that's kind of fun. And you want to show a kid's version in one sentence. I can't resist. Let's do that. The universe is like a birthday party. It had a beginning, so somebody had to throw it, and that somebody is God. Um, I've seen a lot of people explain the cosmological argument. I've never seen it quite like this. So that's kind of neat. So that is it can help us learn it. Of course, if you have any questions about it, you could ask the questions. It's interactive. If there's a part of it you don't understand, you could just say, "I don't understand this one thing," um, and it'll give it to us. But now, how about we're going to go the opposite direction? Explain it like I'm a Harvard professor with doctorates in physics and philosophy. Let's see what it says there. So it's going to level it all the way back up. So philosophical and scientific depth. The syllogism is deductively valid. The strength of the Kalam rests on the plausibility of its premises. It's using a little bit different language here than it did on that last one. Um, the causal principle, the universe began to exist, the nature of the cause. Um, and then it actually brings in some objections because this is the primary one we get with the cosmological argument. If God caused the universe to exist, then who caused God? Um, and this explains it in a way that is philosophical. It's not a contingent being, or God is not a contingent being, um, because it says whatever begins to exist has a cause. Um, and then so on. So it even has a little summary. So here you can see we've taken the column cosmological argument from the way that you would read it in the book Reasonable Faith by William Lane Craig, and we've taken it all the way down to a second grader by telling a story that helps the second grader understand. And then we brought it all the way back up to a college professor, a fairly intelligent one. I mean, an extremely intelligent one that has done a lot of work in philosophy and science. And this is the one thing. And so, whatever level you're at, if you're trying to learn uh, 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 apologetics argument, you can use ChatGPT to explain it to yourself, um, and then help you learn to explain it to other people. So I'm going to pop open another window here, and let's see, turn that off. And so this is another temporary chat. So the next thing is rephrasing, and we kind of did some rephrasing there. That part was about learning, but we also did a lot of rephrasing for different audiences. But what if I want to explain the teleological argument? Well, that's the argument from design, right? So explain that in the style of C.S. Lewis, and it's gonna, it's just pipe in hand, and then it spits out this thing that's kind of in because AI has how it learns, how they train the models is based on, it's basically ingested the entire internet. And so it knows what C.S. Lewis sounds like because there's a lot of his writing out there. Um, and so we've got this, this thing that is like totally in the style of C.S. Lewis. But what if I want to do, Charles Spurgeon? That's going to be a different tone because Charles Spurgeon, known as the Prince of Preachers, he lived at a different time than C.S. Lewis, and he had a different way of communicating because he was a preacher, not a writer. And so you see, he starts off real relational. Lift up your eyes and behold the heavens. Do you see how the stars march in their ranks? Right. This is, I mean, it's almost poetic. But if you go and you read some Spurgeon sermons, then this is going to be like his voice, right? Let's say the world is no orphan; its father rules from the heavens. Um, so Spurgeon style, and then it says it wants to even give us as an outline, a sermon outline, but we don't care for that today. Let's go with somebody a little more modern. Let's look at the style of Frank Turek, um, who it says, Frank Turek has a quick, punchy, debate-ready style. He's conversationally sharp and fond of using common sense analogies. And so we see this, think about it. If you're walking along the beach and you see the words John loves Mary written in the sand, do we assume the waves did that? Of course not. And so this goes through and it writes it like Frank Turek would. Um, and so we can see that it can take on different styles. Here it offers to do a debate style script. On Spurgeon, it offered to do a sermon outline because Spurgeon is known for preaching. Turek is known for debating. So debate style script. But we don't want to do that. Um, well, sure. Why don't we? So debate style, Frank Turek handling live Q&A. And so here it's showing um, some of the common questions that Turk would get. It's asking him and then giving answers like he would give. And if you've seen Turk debate ever, then this is totally his style. He's, great question. Let's break it down. And then he goes through one, two, 3 points. Um, and then, you know, he's answering this stuff. So that's pretty cool. And then the last thing, let's do because these are Christians who would have in their time probably um, understood and tried to communicate the teleological argument. But what if we want to get somebody completely different? Let's do the style of Bob Dylan, right? Um, Imagine his gravelly voice. You look out at the stars, man, and they ain't just hanging there like spilled marbles on the floor. They're dancing, keeping time, like some old clock that never winds down. If you see the clock ticking on the wall, you don't say, "Oh, that just happened." No, you know somebody built it. Set the hands just so, wound it up with a purpose. Same with the songs of the birds, same with the rivers. So you can see this. I mean, I think ChatGPT tends to get a little lean a little too into the um, like being stereotypical. I think if you really sat Bob Dylan down and he wrote this, it wouldn't come out quite like that. How many times is he going to use the word troubadour in something he writes? I don't know. But still, you can see it's doing these different styles, and that's kind of fun. Um, and now let's do one more. So we've looked at how it can help you learn stuff. We've looked at how it can rephrase stuff for you. And now here's the last one that we're going to do today. And this is practicing. Because the goal of apologetics ultimately is to interact with people and try and break down those barriers that keep them from the Christian worldview, keep them from Christ, keep them from considering it. And so at some point, we're going to want to interact with people, right? Well, we can simulate that and kind of refine our skills a little bit using ChatGPT. So I'm going to say, assume the role of an atheist who believes morality is entirely subjective. Let's have a short conversation. You start. Now, if I wanted to, I could have given a lot more background into who that atheist is, whether they're angry, whether they've dealt with church hurt, whether they just never grew up around Christians at all, and they assume atheism is the only way. Well, you could do all that. You can give it a personality and whatever. For this, I'm just going to let chat run with it and see what it does. So, stepping into that perspective, then right and wrong are really just human preferences shaped by culture, upbringing, personal experience. There's no universal ought, only agreements we make to live together. Do you think that kind of relativism can still create a stable society? Um, I'm not sure I understand. I don't think, um, well, and I could be doing voice mode here, but I like to type. So we're just practicing it. I don't think the moral relativism can create a stable society. Morality has to be grounded on something outside of, let's see, culture. Why does it have to be? Societies function with laws, norms, and shared values. Those are cultural constructs that may shift over time. They're enough to keep order. Why? Uh, with insisting on absolute morality, risks people clinging to rigid systems that can't adapt to human change. Without external grounding, morality is ultimately arbitrary. Um, no way to judge. Or let's say evaluate. Um, relative for a society that decides society about society or culture that decides um, a specific person is detrimental and doesn't have the right to exist. So, an example, Um, People with nine toes. I was going to say people, left-handed people, but I have friends that are left-handed and I might get offended. Um, don't you please, when those people die? I don't need my money. And that way culture. They just die. Right makes right. Comes underlying reality. The counter question is, how do we know what that is? Um, right. So, from the relative standpoint, um, absolute morality looks less like objective truth and more like competing narratives dressed in the language of absolutes. So, it's saying, um, I do think that an appeal to something higher solves the problem. Right. Moves the question. So, do we determine what our power look to? But that's a different question. I'm happy to discuss that too. All right. So if this was all scripted and everything, then I would have known what I was going to type and I would have done that ahead of time. Um, so societies do survive and evolve even without appealing to absolutes. Their morality shifts and yet order doesn't collapse every time. Um, right. Um, Societies do survive, but I would argue they don't thrive. Morality is shifting. Um, Even today, slavery has not been eradicated. It's eliminated. That's easier to spell. Um, why do women have no rights? Um, Slavery. Oh, I said slavery. Um, Also, religious freedom is rare. So, let's see. Your stance would be okay with all knowledge. Let's see what it says. Personal values of the society I want to live in. Cool. So here and this was just to kind of show you where this could go. I really want to keep debating this, but I know it's probably not fun to watch. Um, but we can so here you could do this and I could at any time I could say, okay, chat, how about take an angrier tone or act like you're drunk or whatever. I mean, whatever you want to do, you can practice these conversations, and they're super helpful. Whatever, and this is also something really good to do with presentations that you do. In fact, with sometimes I'll have a sermon that I'm going to preach, and I'll preach it to ChatGPT using voice mode, and it gets like a whole transcript and everything. And then I'll say, what would a non-believer who came to church for the first time think of this sermon? What points would hit? What points would not hit? And whatever, and things like that. Or say, are there parts of this that aren't very clear? Is there something that I could draw out? Or usually, what I have to do is go, how can I simplify this sermon to get it down into the time limit that we have and make it where it's something that people can actually ingest all of and cling to throughout their week. And so it's really good at giving feedback like that. So that's pretty much it for today. It's probably went long, but we've got here we talked about how learning things we walked through the calm cosmological argument about rephrasing, and we did that with the design argument. And then here in this chat, we talked about role playing and practicing your your arguments and your communication techniques from the safety of your chat window. And here, this is a temporary chat. If I get offended, I can just close it and it's gone forever. So anyway, those are three more things you can do with ChatGPT to kind of help you with your apologetics ministry and help sharpen your tool set. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll get to them. Hope you enjoyed this episode.